Ladies, bring it in close. If silence is the only thing you're getting from him, take heed, because I'm about to forecast your destiny. I don't need to know his name to know his game. It's the psychology of repetition that Carl Jung warned us about. We loop through the same unconscious habits until we finally wake up to them. Currently, you are likely trapped in a dynamic that inflates his vanity while bankrupting your own spirit. That ends right now. We are reclaiming your agency today. Because I have to be honest with you. Your current strategy is likely the very fuel that keeps his silence burning. And don't even try to whisper, but he's unique. Let me save you the inevitable pain. He isn't. He is simply a man. A creature running on default settings, steered by his fears, his fragile pride, and his blind spots. Essentially, men fall into two categories. Category 1, the oblivious wanderer. Category 2, the oblivious wanderer with a smartphone. They both pretend to have a master plan, but take it from me, they are totally winging it. So, if he's ignoring your messages, delaying replies, suddenly going cold, or giving you the famous, "I forgot to text you back" performance. Good news, truly, because you're about to hit his ego in the one place. Men hate being touched. Not physically, psychologically. Deep in the part of him that he doesn't show anyone. The part Jung would call his shadow. The piece buried under bravado, silence, excuses, and fake nonchalance. Let me paint a scene you know too well. You send him a sweet, simple message. "Hey, how's your day?" He sees it. He breathes. He continues his life as if your message is a decorative sticker on his screen. And he replies whenever he feels like it. Tomorrow. Maybe. Maybe never. But let a notification pop up about something he wants. Food, football, dopamine. Oh, he's quick. Lightning fast. Suddenly, he's present, engaged, alive. So no, he's not busy. Men will reply instantly to anything that benefits them emotionally, mentally, or physically. A discount code, immediate. A fantasy football update, immediate. A meme from his friend, instant reaction. But you get the delayed response. The, "I'm sorry, I've been overwhelmed." The, "I've had a lot going on." The pause, the space, the silence. And the reason is not what you think. It's not because you're not amazing. Not because you're not attractive. Not because he met someone else. Not because you said something wrong. It's one simple truth most women never understand. A man takes his time with a woman when his ego believes he can. And that is exactly where we're going to hit him. Because let me tell you something, brutally honest, the kind of truth that gets women healed and men uncomfortable. A man ignores a woman only when he secretly believes she won't go anywhere. Read that again. When a man thinks you are emotionally invested, predictable, or easily available, his ego relaxes. He becomes lazy. He becomes entitled. He becomes slow. He thinks, "She's already mine emotionally. I can get back to her whenever." Men don't ignore women they might lose. Men ignore women they believe they've already secured. You know that thing men do with remote controls? Holding on to it even when they're not using it. Clicking buttons that do nothing, keeping it in their hand as if it's part of their body. Yeah, men do the same thing with women who like them. They hold on to you emotionally, even when they're not engaging with you. And here's what's happening in his mind, word for word. "She likes me. She's not going anywhere. I can reply later. She'll understand. She'll wait. I've got this." In his brain, he truly believes you are emotionally booked, reserved, pre-selected, done. But don't worry, his comfort zone is about to catch fire. Because men love to act like nothing affects them, like they're emotionally bulletproof. But the male ego has 3 weak spots, and when you understand them, everything shifts. Weak spot number 1. The fear of being replaceable. Men do not want to be just another option. They want to feel like the main character in your story, even if they're not showing up like one. When he even suspects you could move on, his mind begins writing horror movies. Weak spot number 2. The fear of losing influence. Men love to believe their presence changes your mood, your day, your attention, your world. When he realizes he's no longer the gravitational center of your emotions, he feels it deeply. Weak spot number 3. The fear of your emotional detachment. A man can handle your anger. He can handle your disappointment. He can even handle your silence when it's temporary. But what he cannot handle is you slipping away peacefully. Not loudly, not dramatically, not in chaos, but quietly, calmly, confidently. Nothing destroys a man's ego like realizing your world didn't collapse when he stepped out of it. Before we hit those soft spots, you need to stop doing the things that feed his ego more than his own mother does. Mistake 1. Texting again just to check in. Stop treating him like a missing airline passenger. He saw the message. Mistake 2. Posting "I'm so unbothered" stories. If you post a quote about healing, he knows it's about him. Always. Mistake 3. Giving him the same energy even when he gives you less. If his energy drops and yours stays high, congratulations. You've just trained him that bare minimum gets rewarded. You must shift out of the archetype he placed you in. Right now, he has cast you as the woman who cares more. But the moment you shift, when you pull back, when you detach, when you stop overgiving, you enter what Jung would call individuation, becoming the woman who chooses herself first. And that is when the entire dynamic flips. Because men don't panic when you pull away with speeches or dramatics. Men panic when you pull away quietly. When your energy softens, not because you're hurt, but because you're done overextending. When your silence is peaceful instead of anxious. When your attention becomes something he has to earn, not something he gets for free. That's the moment his ego wakes up. That's the moment his mind starts racing. That's the moment he finally realizes, I might lose her. And that, ladies, is the beginning. The moment a man realizes he might actually lose you, something shifts behind his eyes. It's subtle at first, almost invisible, but it's there. The tightening of his jaw, the sudden curiosity, the slight discomfort he can't quite name. Because men are used to women reacting, explaining, checking in, chasing, worrying, trying. They're not used to women becoming quiet storms, calm on the surface, powerful underneath. And this is when his ego, the same ego that felt so safe ignoring you, begins to crack. It doesn't matter how confident he acts. It doesn't matter how busy he claims to be. Deep down, the male psyche is wired to notice shifts in feminine energy. He can ignore your words, but he cannot ignore your absence. He can overlook your message, but he cannot overlook the sudden gap where your attention used to be. When you stop chasing, he feels it. When you stop over-explaining, he feels it. When you stop prioritizing him, he feels it. A man might pretend your silence is nothing, but it's everything. Because your silence does what arguments never could. It confronts him with himself. It forces him to feel the tension he created. It forces him to sit with the emptiness he designed. And whether he admits it or not, your shift wakes up something in him that he thought he had under control. The fear of emotional irrelevance. Men are terrified of becoming unimportant. They don't say it, but every man secretly wants to feel like he has a place in your mind, even when he's not behaving like he deserves one. This is why the psychological switch is so powerful. Men don't panic when you get emotional. They expect that. Men panic when you become unpredictable in your calm. When the woman who used to text paragraphs now replies with one sentence. When the woman who used to initiate conversation now waits. When the woman who used to make room for him suddenly makes room for herself. That subtle shift hits him in the places he guards the most, the places he never talks about, the places hidden beneath his logic, his pride, and his excuses. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to be cold. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to punish him. All you need to do is stop pouring your love into a cup with holes in it. Stop filling spaces he leaves empty. Stop rewarding behavior that drains you. When you turn the focus back to yourself, when your life becomes full again, not artificially, not for show, but genuinely, that's when he feels the shift in his bones. A man who thought he knew you will suddenly realize he misread you. He underestimated you. He assumed your heart made you predictable, but he forgot that a woman's strength is never in her softness. It's in her boundaries. It's in her ability to detach with grace. It's in the way she can love deeply without losing herself. Men don't expect that. They expect dependence. They expect emotional availability, even when they're not reciprocating it. They expect a woman's patience to be infinite until it isn't. And the moment it isn't, he feels something he hasn't felt in a long time: vulnerability. Because your shift creates a new question he doesn't know how to answer. Is she slipping away? It lingers in his mind while he's driving, while he's working, while he's scrolling on his phone. It bothers him while he's pretending not to care. It interrupts his ego's comfort by whispering possibilities he doesn't want to think about. What if she's talking to someone else? What if she realized she deserves better? What if she's happier without me? What if I'm no longer her priority? What if she's replacing me? Men don't break when you yell. They break when your energy no longer revolves around them. They break when your world realigns and they're no longer at the center. They break when they realize the woman they took for granted is evolving out of their reach. The truth is, ignoring you wasn't about you. It was about him. Men ignore when they feel safe, when they assume access, when they believe your emotional commitment is guaranteed. But the moment you show him, not through drama, but through action, that nothing is guaranteed, now the dynamic flips. Now his ego feels unsafe for the first time. And men behave very differently when they feel unsafe emotionally. He starts watching your stories faster. He starts replying sooner. He suddenly asks questions. His tone softens. His energy shifts. He becomes a little more present, a little more careful, a little more intentional, because your silence has done something his ego wasn't prepared for. It activated his fear of loss. And when a man feels he might actually lose a woman of value, he wakes up. Your unpredictability is what shakes him. Not chaos, but calm detachment. Not anger, but emotional neutrality. Not threats, but quiet self-respect. This is the moment where you begin to see the real man behind the surface behavior. The man who thought he could coast now becomes the man who wants to correct. The man who assumed you'd always be there now becomes the man who realizes the value of your presence. You don't have to announce this transformation. The energy speaks. The shift speaks. The way you carry yourself speaks. Men hear what you don't say far louder than the things you do. And what he hears right now is the most terrifying message a woman can send without using a single word. I'm not waiting anymore. When a woman reaches this point, she becomes magnetic in a way he didn't see coming. It's not performance. It's not manipulation. It's evolution. The kind Jung described when he spoke about stepping into your highest self. The version of you that is whole, grounded, complete. A woman who becomes whole becomes unpredictable to a man who depended on her fragmentation. And that unpredictability is where his ego begins to crumble. And as his ego begins to crumble, something even more interesting happens. He starts to question himself in ways he never expected. Because men aren't used to feeling uncertainty in romance. They're used to being the ones who dictate the pace, the flow, the closeness, the distance. They're used to believing that their inconsistency is normal and your emotional availability is constant. But your shift reverses everything he thought he understood. Now he's the one checking his phone. Now he's the one wondering why your replies feel different. Now he's the one rereading your messages, trying to interpret the tone. Now he's the one feeling the emptiness he once made you sit in. And that right there is the psychological reversal men never see coming. See, men operate with a strange inner rule book. They think they're immune to losing women who liked them. They think once you've shown affection, you'll always show it. But they forget something powerful about feminine energy. It evolves, it transforms, it rises. And once a woman reaches clarity, she becomes someone he can't predict anymore. Not because she's playing games, but because she's finally playing by her own rules. Your detachment triggers something primal in him, something he can't rationalize away. The competitive instinct wakes up. The desire to feel chosen wakes up. The fear of being forgotten wakes up. At first, he won't admit any of this to himself. He'll tell himself stories to protect his pride. She's just busy. She's not mad. She's probably fine. She's probably still invested. But his body knows better. His intuition, yes, men have intuition, knows better. His discomfort tells the truth his ego refuses to say out loud. And that truth is simple. Your unpredictable calmness scares him more than your emotional intensity ever did. Because emotional intensity meant you still cared. Silence means you're slipping away. And calmness means he can't control it. The moment he realizes he can no longer predict your reactions, he starts to see you differently. He starts to look at you with new eyes. Not the eyes of a man who assumes he has access, but the eyes of a man who feels he has something to lose. That shift alone breaks open the part of him he has spent years protecting. The part we'd call the hidden self, the piece of his psyche that only appears when his comfort is disrupted. And now, instead of ignoring you, he becomes hyper-aware. Everything you do suddenly matters. Your energy, your timing, your tone, your presence, your silence. He feels every detail. Not because you're performing, but because you've stopped performing. You've taken the spotlight off him and placed it back on yourself. And that is the moment where everything about him becomes reactive. He starts thinking, why didn't she reply yet? Who is she talking to? Did I do something wrong? Is she seeing someone else? Why doesn't she seem affected anymore? Your peace has suddenly become suspicious. Your happiness has become threatening. Your distance has become magnetic. And the most ironic part? You didn't do anything except stop trying to prove your worth to someone who had grown too comfortable. That alone becomes the catalyst for his inner unraveling. Because when a man loses the psychological upper hand, he becomes aware of your value in ways he wasn't capable of seeing before. This is the moment he starts remembering things he ignored. How kind you were, how patient you were, how understanding you were, how easy you made things for him, how much effort you used to give, how safe it felt to be loved by you. Men remember your softness only when they lose access to it. But here's the deeper truth. His ego isn't cracking because he suddenly wants to treat you better. It's cracking because he's confronting the one fear he always tries to outrun, the fear of irrelevance. Men can survive losing attention. They can survive losing admiration. But losing significance, losing the feeling of mattering, that is the one emotional wound their pride can't handle. And your shift makes him question his significance in your world for the first time. He tries to act normal. He tries to keep his cool. He tries to pretend he doesn't notice the change, but men can only pretend for so long. Soon, his actions begin to betray him. He texts earlier in the day. His tone softens. He asks what you're doing this weekend. He pays attention to small details he used to overlook. He tries to reassure himself by pulling you back in subtle ways, checking your energy, testing your availability, hinting at conversation, trying to reopen the door he casually closed before. And the best part? You didn't chase any of this. You didn't force it. You didn't beg, explain, or demand. You simply became aligned with yourself again. And that alignment shifted the entire dynamic because you're not playing small anymore. You're not offering emotional labor to someone who isn't reciprocating. You're not filling gaps he creates. You're staying in your feminine power, warm, calm, self-contained, focused. Men are drawn to the woman who chooses herself. They are unsettled by the woman they can't control. They become fascinated by the woman who stopped giving them the reactions they were used to. Because now, they feel your presence while being denied your availability. That combination is pure psychological electricity. It sparks curiosity, discomfort, longing, and fear all at once. And as this happens, he doesn't just notice your shift. He starts noticing something else. The parts of himself he didn't confront before. The parts he suppressed. The parts he avoided. The parts beneath his ego. The same unconscious layers Jung described in every human being. The places where fear, desire, pride, and insecurity live together. Your silence brought him face to face with himself, and that is the one thing he didn't expect. And once he's face to face with himself, the game changes entirely. Because the truth is, a man can outrun your emotions, but he can't outrun his own. He can distract himself from your messages, but he can't distract himself from the sudden emptiness your absence creates. He can pretend not to care until the quiet starts echoing, and it always does. Men underestimate silence because it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't attack. It doesn't explain. It simply arrives softly, calmly, without warning, and that silence becomes a mirror he cannot escape. It shows him the parts of himself he didn't want to see, his carelessness, his inconsistency, his emotional entitlement. The same things he brushed off before suddenly become sharp, uncomfortable truths. He begins replaying moments he ignored. Your kindness he took casually. Your patience he never earned. Your emotional effort he treated like an unlimited resource. He begins remembering the things he once overlooked. And each memory lands with weight he didn't feel before. Now the messages he didn't respond to haunt him more than they ever bothered you. He sees your words differently, more valuable, more meaningful, more human. He reads what he once ignored and feels the gap between who he pretended to be and the man he actually was. It stings, not because of guilt, but because he suddenly sees that your heart wasn't a guarantee. This is when he starts rationalizing his behavior to himself. Men do this when they feel they're losing their grip. I was just busy. She probably knew I liked her. It wasn't that serious. I didn't think it mattered. But the quiet voice beneath the rationalizations says the truth he wishes he could deny. You took her for granted. And that voice will not shut up. He begins noticing little details he previously ignored. The way you no longer reply instantly. The way your energy feels lighter, happier, more self-contained. The way you share pieces of your life without placing him at the center of it. The way you sound calm instead of eager. Something about your tone shifts. Something about your presence changes. Something about your energy stops clinging to him and starts belonging to you again. That's when confusion sets in. Why does she sound different? Why does she seem okay? Why isn't she trying anymore? Why do I suddenly feel uncomfortable? This discomfort is not a sign of love yet. It's a sign of ego. He thought he was the stable one in the dynamic. The one who had emotional control. The one who knew exactly what you felt. But now suddenly, the emotional ground isn't where he left it. The certainty he depended on is gone. And uncertainty is the one thing men fear more than anything. He tries small, subtle ways to measure where he stands. A random emoji. Hey stranger. A late night, what are you doing? A passive little check-in that means nothing and everything. These messages are not expressions of genuine connection. They're ego probes, emotional thermometers. He wants to know if he still has access to your heart. If you reply too warmly, he relaxes. If you reply too coldly, he spirals. But if you reply warmly yet distant, kind yet self-contained, present yet unavailable, that's when he loses his composure inside. Because now he sees you as a woman with options. A woman with a full life. A woman who's outgrown the version of herself who tolerated inconsistency. A woman who learned to self-soothe instead of overgive. And this is where the psychological reversal becomes unmistakable. He starts imagining scenarios that punch holes in his ego. What if someone else is making her laugh now? What if she's finally realizing her worth? What if she's happier without me distracting her? What if she's moved on and I didn't notice? What if I actually lost her? These questions hunt him, not because they're dramatic, but because they're plausible. When you shift into self-respect, everything about your energy becomes rare. Men know when they've mishandled something rare. They don't need a lecture. They feel it. He begins watching your life from the outside, observing what he once had access to without appreciating it. He sees your glow, your confidence, your calmness, your joy. He sees how life looks on you when you're not burdened by his inconsistency. He sees how soft you are without being desperate, how feminine you are without being dependent, how open you are without being overspending emotionally. Your evolution confronts him with a fear he can't intellectualize. She no longer needs me. And that thought doesn't just bruise his ego, it shatters the foundation of how he saw himself in your story. Men crave being needed far more than they crave being loved. Being loved feels comforting, but being needed feels powerful. Yet nothing terrifies a man more than a woman who realizes she doesn't need him to regulate her emotions or validate her worth. Your independence doesn't push him away. It draws him in, because now he sees you not as a guarantee, but as a possibility. Not as someone available, but as someone selective. Not as someone waiting, but as someone evolving. You become the woman he suddenly wants to impress. The woman he suddenly wants to pursue. The woman he suddenly wants to earn. And here's the irony. He didn't feel this when you were giving everything. He feels it now that you've given yourself back to yourself. A woman who knows her worth becomes a psychological riddle to a man who once felt comfortable. He can't decode you anymore. He can't predict you. He can't control the dynamic. He can't rely on the version of you he took for granted. That unpredictability is intoxicating. It pulls him in slowly at first, then urgently. He starts imagining how to reconnect, how to re-enter your world, how to restore a position he treated carelessly. He won't admit it, but he senses the shift of power. And men always respond to shifts of power. Your evolution makes him question his own. Your boundaries highlight his lack of them. Your calmness exposes his anxiety. Your emotional stability exposes his emotional immaturity. Your growth highlights his stagnation. Without attacking him, without shaming him, without saying a single harsh word, you have forced him to confront himself. This is why your silence was louder than anything you could have said. This is why your detachment changed him. This is why your glow activated his insecurity. This is why your confidence awakened his desire. Because when a woman shifts, every man connected to her feels the shift. And the man who once ignored you is now feeling it in the deepest part of his ego. And once he feels that shift in the deepest part of his ego, everything in him enters a quiet state of panic. One he can't show, can't articulate, and definitely can't explain to his friends. Men don't say, "I'm scared she doesn't want me anymore." They don't say, "I messed up a good thing." They don't say, "Her silence is killing me." They just feel it. And that feeling shapes every move he makes. Now he becomes hyper-aware of the smallest details. Your tone, your timing, your distance, your softness, your detachment. He reads between your words because your silence taught him that you are no longer the woman he once took for granted. You aren't reacting. You aren't demanding. You aren't fighting for something he neglected. You are simply unattached. Still warm, still feminine, still receptive, but no longer anchored to his inconsistency. At this point, his ego has no choice but to confront a truth it ran from. You are not his possession. You are not guaranteed. You are not emotionally obligated to him. You are a woman with a life, a center, a soul, and choices. Choices he thought you'd never make without him. And now every choice you make that doesn't revolve around him shakes something inside him he hasn't felt since before he met you. He begins replaying moments he dismissed. How excited you were when you talked to him. How much love you poured into conversations. How patient you were when he was slow. How supportive you were when he was distant. How understanding you were when he barely gave explanations. It hits him in waves, not because he suddenly became enlightened, but because your absence revealed what your presence once felt like. Men rarely understand a woman's emotional value while she is giving. They understand it when she stops giving. And the moment he realizes the softness he once expected might be offered somewhere else, that's when he feels the hit. Not just to his ego, but to the illusion of control he thought he had. He starts imagining you existing in someone else's world. Not dramatically, not romantically, just peacefully. You laughing with someone new. You talking freely, without tension. You receiving consistent good morning texts. You being prioritized by a man who doesn't need reminders. You being adored by someone who sees you instantly. You smiling in ways he never bothered to notice. These thoughts aren't fantasies. They're fears masquerading as possibilities. He doesn't need proof you have someone else. The idea alone rattles him. And that's because, for the first time, he sees you not as someone waiting for him, but as someone the world would be lucky to have. This is the moment where his ego begins negotiating with his heart. Do you want her back because you care, or because you're scared someone else will? It's a question he doesn't want to answer, because the truth reveals more about him than about you. But despite his pride, despite his silence, despite his previous coldness, something begins pulling him toward you. A mixture of longing, regret, curiosity, and fear. The fear of being replaced. The fear of losing influence. The fear of being forgotten. And above all, the fear that the woman he once ignored has become untouchable. Now he starts suddenly trying to re-enter your world. The random, "Hey, how's your week going?" The unplanned compliment. The sudden interest in your life. The prolonged replies. The attempts to bring back inside jokes. The unexpected good morning or good night messages. He doesn't call it chasing, but that's exactly what it is. It's the quiet chase of a man who thought he could afford to lose something invaluable. He's desperately hoping that the door he left half open is still reachable. But now the dynamic has flipped. He used to have your heart on a silver platter. Now he's standing outside wondering if he even deserves to knock. This is where many women make a mistake. They get emotional. They ask why he ignored them. They demand explanations. They want closure, validation, accountability. But what they don't realize is that the power you built wasn't in his apology. It was in your evolution. The moment you try to force a confession, you surrender the emotional advantage he already felt slipping away. You don't need to interrogate him. Life already did. You don't need to punish him. His ego already felt the consequences. You don't need to prove anything. Your silence proved it better than words. What matters now is the energy you hold. Calm, feminine, grounded, receptive but not dependent, warm but not overflowing, kind but not sacrificing, present but not invested too quickly. You meet his efforts with softness, but you don't fall back into old patterns. You allow him to come forward, but you don't chase his pace. You let him show consistency instead of demanding it. Because the truth is, a man learns how to treat you the moment you stop giving him unlimited access to your emotions. He learns your worth when you set boundaries he didn't know you had. He respects you when your life is full enough that you don't rearrange it for inconsistency. He values you when you stop auditioning for a role in his life he never formally offered. He learns this not through lectures, but through contrast. The contrast between who you were when you were emotionally overextended and who you are now that you've reclaimed your power. Your evolution becomes the curriculum. Your limits act as the looking glass. Your serenity provides the discipline. Your emotional intelligence sets the new baseline. He finally grasps a truth he missed earlier. A woman who requires a man is low-hanging fruit. A woman who selects a man is a pursuit. But a woman who prioritizes herself? That is the one that terrifies him to walk away from. But here is the real revelation. He is no longer the main character of this story. This is about the person you forged in the fire. The one who took back her self-worth. The one who rewired her triggers. The one who mastered the art of letting go without holding a grudge. The one who chose tranquility over anxiety. The one who found her way back home to her own soul. Perhaps he returns. Perhaps he stays gone. Regardless, you are no longer on standby. You are done diminishing yourself. You aren't compromising. You aren't pursuing. You aren't manipulating. Because a man has no fear of losing a dependent. He is terrified of losing a woman who is complete on her own. And that is precisely the powerhouse you have become.